Hi, this is John Kamarianos. Welcome to a new edition of Capital Considered. Today, I wanted to talk about retiring abroad. Many Americans are choosing to retire overseas these days, either Central America, many in Europe, and there are opportunities and difficulties that go with doing that. Regarding your investment accounts, that's the topic I really want to tackle. There can be problems. They can be overcome, but it's useful to talk about the problems and how to overcome them. If a brokerage sees that a lot of logins are occurring from overseas, they may freeze your account. U.S. rules demand that you have a U.S. address to maintain a brokerage account. One way to overcome that is to work with an advisor who is on an institutional platform at a firm, at a custodian like Interactive Brokers or Schwab International. Those platforms relieve you of those problems of having your account frozen or of having a foreign address, because you will have a foreign address if you've chosen to retire abroad permanently. So working with an advisor who uses a custodian or a brokerage that has an institutional or an international platform like Interactive Brokers or Schwab will help. The second problem is you want maybe to have the relationship with the advisor before you decide to leave the States. That can help so you don't have to make these changes once you're abroad. Once you have the foreign address as the permanent address, things can get more complicated then. So having the relationship and being on the institutional platform at the custodian or at the brokerage can help ahead of time. So make that part of your retirement planning if you are planning to retire abroad. The second issue is what investments you hold in the account. The U.S. is a strange country in that it taxes you no matter where you live as a U.S. citizen. If you maintain your U.S. citizenship, you owe taxes to the IRS, to the U.S. government. And so foreign investments, foreign funds can present a myriad of tax problems. And so you should try to avoid holding them. And if you have a competent advisor who knows the rules, he or she will know to avoid them. What you want to own is U.S. mutual funds and ETFs as much as possible if you're not choosing individual securities. But there's a catch there too, in that those securities, US-based mutual funds, don't meet European regulatory requirements. They don't overcome European regulatory hurdles. So again, having the advisor and having the institutional platform can exempt you from those problems. And so then you can hold the US mutual funds and the US ETFs. So again, an advisor is crucial. Being on an institutional platform at a US brokerage or a custodian is crucial. You run into what's called the PFIC problem, the passive foreign investment company problem, if you hold a foreign-based fund, and so you don't want to do that. It presents a lot of tax problems. Make sure your advisor knows that you could run into currency issues as well. Once you overcome the investment obstacles, you have the right funds, you're allowed to hold them because you're on the institutional or international platform. Make sure your advisor knows that if you're in a European country, for example, you have assets that are in dollars. You've worked in the United States your whole life, and so you have dollars, but you're spending in euros. And so your advisor needs to know that that could be a problem. If the dollar depreciates, then your assets will lose their purchasing power relative to the things you need to buy in the country you're in. So you should probably maintain some foreign currency exposure, and you should have a competent advisor who knows how to get that foreign currency exposure, get you matched up, let's say, with the currency that you are spending in. So that's the final thing for now. There are other things to worry about as well, but this can be done, is the message, or should be the message of this video, with a competent advisor who has experience in this, who knows the tax laws. I'll say the last thing is certain countries don't treat Roth IRAs the way the United States does because they don't have any concept of a Roth IRA. Usually traditional IRAs and 401ks, the foreign tax system has an understanding of. Roth IRAs can present some difficulties in some European countries. Not worth enumerating them now, but have an advisor who's aware of that. So by all means, if you have the opportunity to retire overseas in Europe, for example, and you're inclined to do that, don't let the brokerage problems and the investment account problems get in the way of doing that. The problems can be overcome. This is John Comarianos for Capital Considered, signing off. Thank you for watching.
No information on this podcast should be construed as investment, tax, or legal advice. This podcast is not an offer for advisory services or to buy or sell securities. Before making any financial decisions, consult with a qualified professional advisor who can assess your individual needs and circumstances. Past performance is not indicative of future results, and all investments carry risks, including the potential loss of principal. Securities discussed in this podcast may be holdings of the host or his clients.